The Forbidden scanned the Terran defense vessel Horizon's Edge, glided through the darkness of space like a silver needle threading through black fabric. Captain Marcus Reed stood on the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the stars drift past on the main view screen. His reflection ghosted across the display, showing a man in his late 40s with gray threading through his dark hair and lines etched around his eyes, from too many years spent staring into the void. Horizon's Edge was not the largest ship in the human fleet, but it was certainly one of the most advanced. Its sleek hull bore the scars of a dozen engagements, each mark a story of survival and victory. The ship patrolled the neutral expanse, a region of space that separated human territory from the domains of a dozen other species. It was a place where treaties were tested and where one move could spark a war that would consume entire star systems. Lieutenant Sarah Chun sat at the communications station, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. She had been monitoring subspace channels for the past 3 hours, listening to the usual chatter of merchant vessels and patrol ships. The routine was almost hypnotic until at WASN T.Captain, we have multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. Bearing 270 Mark 15. Chun's voice cut through the bridge's quiet hum with practiced calm. Though Reed could hear the edge of concern underneath, Reed moved to the tactical display, his eyes scanning the data that appeared before him. 5 vessels materialized on the screen, their signatures identifying them as Vorlian Confederacy ships. The Vorlians were an old species, one that had been traveling between stars when humanity was still learning to make fire. They were not enemies, but neither were they friends. They were bureaucrats and scientists who believed the galaxy should be governed by rules and regulations rather than ambition and exploration. The lead Vorlian vessel was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Horizon's Edge. Its hull was covered in sensor arrays and scanning equipment that pulsed with bioluminescent light. The other 4 ships formed a defensive perimeter around it, their weapon systems visible but not yet activated. Open a channel, Reed ordered. Chun's fingers moved, and moments later, the view screen filled with the image of a Vorlian commander. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Its forearms moved in complex gestures that the translation software struggled to interpret. Multiple sensory stalks extended from its head, each tipped with an organ that could perceive different spectrums of light and energy. Human vessel. I am Commander Zelfax of the Vorlian Confederacy Research Fleet. We are conducting mandatory compliance scans of all military vessels operating in the neutral expanse. This is in accordance with Section 7 of the Galactic Peace Accords, which your species signed 12 years ago. The alien's voice was translated into a smooth, emotionless tone that somehow made every statement sound like an accusation. Reed kept his expression neutral. Commander Zelfax, this is Captain Marcus Reed of the Terran defense vessel Horizon's Edge. We acknowledge your authority under the Accords. However, I must inform you that certain sections of this vessel contain classified technology. We will comply with standard scanning protocols, but we cannot permit deep penetration scans of our classified systems. Zelvax's sensory stalks waved in what might have been amusement or irritation. Captain Red, the Accords are quite clear. All military vessels must submit to complete scanning. There are no exceptions for classified technology. The galaxy has seen too many arms races and too many wars started by hidden weapons. Transparency is the price of peace. Reed felt his jaw tighten. He had known this moment would come eventually. The Horizon's Edge was not just another patrol vessel. It was a testbed for humanity's most advanced and most dangerous technology. Project Prometheus had been classified at the highest levels, known only to a handful of admirals and government officials. The technology it contained was revolutionary and terrifying in equal measure. Commander, I understand your position, but I must insist on certain restrictions. Reed tried to keep his voice steady, but he could feel the eyes of his crew on him. They knew what was hidden in the bowels of their ship. They knew what would happen if the Vorlians discovered it. Zelthax made a gesture with one of its arms, and the Vorlian scanning vessel powered up its systems. Captain Red, you may insist all you wish, but the scan will proceed. If you attempt to interfere, it will be considered a violation of the Accords and an act of aggression. Reed looked at his tactical officer, Commander James Morrison, a stocky man with the build of someone who had spent years in combat armor. Morrison's face was grim as he studied the tactical display. Sir, their scanning array is powerful enough to penetrate our standard shielding. If they run a full spectrum scan, they will detect the anomaly. The anomaly. That was the polite term for what lay at the heart of the horizon's edge. In truth, it was a controlled singularity, a tiny black hole no larger than a marble, suspended in a magnetic containment field deep within the ship's engineering section. Humanity had learned to extract zero-point energy directly from the fabric of spacetime itself, tapping into the fundamental forces that held the universe together. It was power beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Enough to move ships faster than light without hyperspace engines. Enough to generate shields that could withstand the full fury of a star dot. It was also incredibly dangerous. One miscalculation, one failure of the containment systems, and the singularity would expand, consuming the ship and everything around it in a matter of seconds. Proceed with the scan, Reed said quietly. All hands, this is the captain. Implement Protocol Sigma 9. He did not need to explain what that meant. Every member of his crew had been briefed on what to do if their secret was discovered. Throughout the ship, crew members moved to secure stations. Engineers checked the containment field generators, ensuring that every system was operating at peak efficiency. Security teams armed themselves and took positions at critical junctions. Medical staff prepared emergency facilities. Everyone knew that the next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but possibly the fate of humanity's place in the galaxy. A Vorlian scanning beam lanced out, a brilliant column of purple light that washed over the horizon's edge. On the bridge, displays flickered as the alien sensors probed every corner of the ship. Reed watched Commander Zelthax's face, waiting for the moment of discovery. It came quickly. The Vorlian commander's sensory stalks went rigid, and its skin color shifted to a deep crimson that the translation software identified as extreme alarm. Captain Reed, the alien's voice had lost its emotionless quality and now carried undertones of shock and fear. Our scans are detecting an impossible energy signature in your vessel's core. The readings indicate a gravitational anomaly consistent with a contained singularity. This cannot be real. Reed took a deep breath. Commander Zelthax, what you are detecting is classified technology. I can assure you that it is completely under control and poses no threat to anyone. No threat? Zelthax's voice rose to a pitch that made the translator crackle. You are carrying a singularity on your ship. Do you have any idea what you are dealing with? The Vorlians had experimented with similar technology 8,000 years ago. It destroyed an entire star system and killed billions. We outlawed such research for good reason. On the tactical display, Reed could see other ships beginning to arrive. Word of the scan results was spreading through subspace channels. A Corinthian battlecruiser dropped out of hyperspace, followed by a Zephyrite science vessel and a delegation ship from the Harmonious Collective. Within minutes, the horizon's edge was surrounded by a dozen alien vessels, all demanding answers. Captain, Sean reported, her voice tight with stress. We are being hailed by every ship in the vicinity. The Corinthians are demanding we power down our systems. The Zephyrites want to board us for inspection. The Collective is threatening to bring this before the Galactic Council. Reed looked at the faces of his bridge crew. They were afraid, but they were also ready. They had trained for this scenario, had known it might come. Humanity had always been the newcomers in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. They had always been underestimated, dismissed as primitives who had barely learned to leave their own planet. But humanity had one advantage that none of the older species possessed anymore. They were not afraid to take risks. They were not bound by the cautious thinking that came from millennia of existence. They still had the fire of ambition burning in their hearts. "Open a general channel," Reed ordered. "Broadcast to all ships in range. Asterisk." Chun worked her controls, and Reed felt the weight of a dozen civilizations' attention focus on him. "This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Terran vessel Horizon's Edge. I understand that our ship has revealed something unexpected. I understand that many of you are concerned or even frightened by what your sensors have detected. You have every right to be. What we carry aboard this vessel represents a fundamental shift in humanity's technological capabilities." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. 12 years ago, when humanity joined the galactic community, we agreed to abide by the Accords. We agreed to transparency and cooperation. But we also reserved the right to pursue our own scientific advancement. What you have detected is the result of decades of research and development. It is called Project Prometheus, and it represents humanity's mastery of zero-point energy extraction. The channel erupted with voices. Aliens speaking in a dozen different languages, all demanding explanations, all expressing outrage or fear. Reed waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "I know that some of your species have attempted similar research in the past. I know that some of those attempts ended in disaster. But humanity has succeeded where others have failed. We have created a stable containment system. We have harnessed this power safely. And we have done so because we refuse to accept that some things are impossible simply because they are." BIFFICULTA new voice cut through the chatter. It belonged to a Corinthian admiral, a warrior species known for their aggression and their honor. "Human captain, your words mean nothing. The Corinthians attempted singularity research 600 years ago. Our best scientists and engineers worked for decades. The result was the cataclysm of Corinthus Prime, which killed 40 million of our people. You claim to have mastered what destroyed our homeworld's moon. Prove it, or we will destroy your ship before you can bring the same fate to anyone else." Reed felt sweat bead on his forehead. The Corinthians were not known for making empty threats. If they believed the Horizon's Edge was a danger, they would fire first and apologize later. Before Reed could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Morrison's voice cut through the noise with urgency. "Captain, the Vorlian science vessel is experiencing a critical containment failure. Their experimental antimatter reactor is going unstable." On the view screen, Reed could see the Vorlian ship beginning to glow with an eerie blue light. Energy was bleeding from its hull, and smaller explosions were rippling across its surface. Zelthax appeared on a secondary display. The Vorlian commander's face twisted with fear. "We are losing containment. Evacuate. All ships evacuate immediately. If our reactor breaches, the explosion will destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers." The other alien vessels began to power up their engines, preparing to jump to hyperspace. But Reed knew they would not make it in time. The Vorlian reactor was cascading toward total failure, and when it went, it would take every ship in the vicinity with it. Reed looked at Morrison. "How long do we have?" 90 seconds, maybe less," Morrison replied. His voice grim. Reed made his decision in an instant. "Chun, tell all ships to hold position and transfer all non-essential power to their shields. Morrison, take us in. Full power to the containment field generators. Sir?" Morrison's eyes widened. "If we get that close to an antimatter breach. We are not getting close to it," Reed interrupted. We are going to stop it. Helm, position us between the Vorlian vessel and the rest of the fleet. Engineering, prepare to extend our containment field dot in the engineering section, deep within the ship. Chief Engineer Patricia Lawson stared at her displays in disbelief. Captain, extending the containment field around another vessel is theoretically possible, but we have never tested it. The power requirements alone could destabilize our own singularity. Then I suggest you work fast, Engineer, Reed said calmly. Because if you don't, we are all dead anyway. The Horizon's Edge surged forward, its engines burning brighter than any human ship had ever burned before. It positioned itself directly in front of the failing Vorlian vessel, so close that the two ships' shields were almost touching. In engineering, Lawson and her team worked with desperate speed, recalibrating systems and rerouting power conduits, extending containment field in 3.2. Now, Lawson's voice was tight with concentration. A sphere of shimmering energy erupted from the horizon's edge, expanding outward to engulf the Vorlian science vessel. The antimatter reactor, on the verge of catastrophic breach, suddenly found itself enclosed in a magnetic field billions of times stronger than anything the Vorlians could generate. The runaway reaction slowed, then stopped, held in check by the same technology that contained the singularity at the heart of the human ship. On the bridge, every display showed critical warnings. The containment field was drawing massive amounts of power from the singularity, pushing the system to its absolute limits. The ship shuddered as energy coursed through its systems, and the lights dimmed to emergency levels. Hold it steady, Reed ordered, his knuckles white as he gripped the arms of his command chair. Just a few more seconds. Those seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, gradually, the alarms began to quiet. The Vorlian reactor stabilized, its runaway reaction brought under control. Lawson's voice came over the intercom, shaky but triumphant. Containment is holding, Captain. The Vorlian reactor is stable. We did it. Reed let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Slowly, carefully, the Horizon's Edge withdrew its containment field, leaving the Vorlian vessel intact and functional. The alien ships that had been preparing to flee now sat in stunned silence. Commander Zelthax appeared on the view screen again. The Vorlian skin had shifted to a pale blue that indicated profound shock. Captain Red, you saved us. You used the very technology we feared to prevent a disaster. I do not understand how this is possible. Reed allowed himself a small smile. Commander, humanity has always had a talent for doing the impossible. We learned a long time ago that the greatest dangers often contain the greatest opportunities. We respect the power we have harnessed, but we are not afraid of it. That is what makes us different. The Quinthian Admiral's face appeared on another screen. The warrior's expression had changed from hostility to something that might have been respect. Human Captain, I have fought in 100 battles. I have seen courage in many forms. But what you just did required a different kind of bravery. You risked everything on untested technology to save those who would have destroyed you moments before. This is honorable. Reed nodded. Admiral, we believe that strength without compassion is just brutality. Humanity did not develop this technology to threaten others. We developed it because we refused to accept limits. We refuse to believe that progress must end simply because it becomes dangerous. And we refuse to let fear dictate our choices. All around the horizon's edge, the gathered alien vessels began to transmit messages of acknowledgement and even gratitude. The crisis had passed, but Reed knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The galaxy now knew humanity's secret, and what came next would determine whether that secret would be humanity's greatest achievement or its final mistake. The truth unveiled. Conference chamber aboard the Galactic Council Station Unities. Promise was designed to accommodate every known species in the galaxy. The vast circular room featured atmosphere-controlled zones, gravity-adjustable platforms, and translation systems capable of converting thousands of languages in real time. Today, it was filled to capacity with representatives from 47 different civilizations, all gathered to discuss one topic. Humanity and Project Prometheus. Captain Marcus Reed sat in the human delegation zone, flanked by Admiral Catherine Torres and Dr. David Zhang, the lead scientist behind the Singularity Containment technology. Reed wore his dress uniform, the medals on his chest feeling heavier than usual. Across from him, arranged in a semicircle, sat the Council's primary judges, Commander Zelfax of the Vorlian Confederacy, Admiral Krothnel of the Corinthian Empire, High Scholar Meredith of the Zephyrite Communion, and Speaker Harmonious 7 representing the collective consciousness. Asterisk. The session began with Speaker Harmonious 7, A being composed of crystallized neural patterns that pulsed with soft light as it communicated. Captain Reed, humanity stands accused of developing technology that violates the covenant of responsible innovation, established after the Third Galactic War. Specifically, you have created a weapon system using controlled singularity mechanics, a technology banned for 8,000 years. How do you answer these charges? Reed stood, his voice steady and clear. Speaker, with respect, Project Prometheus is not a weapon system. It is a power generation and propulsion technology. Yes, it uses a controlled microsingularity, but calling it a weapon is like calling a fusion reactor a bomb, simply because both use nuclear processes. Asterisk. High Scholar Meredith, a being resembling a floating jellyfish with dozens of sensory tentacles, rippled with colors that indicated skepticism. Captain, the distinction you draw is meaningless. Any technology capable of generating such immense power can be weaponized. The Zephyrites learned this lesson 3 millennia ago when our energy research accidentally vaporized our fourth moon. The power you control is not meant for mortal hands. Dr. Zhang leaned forward, his scientific mind unable to remain silent. High Scholar, with respect, your species' tragedy occurred because you lacked adequate containment protocols. Humanity has spent 30 years developing fail-safe systems. Our containment fields operate on 17 redundant levels. The singularity aboard the Horizon's Edge is no larger than a grain of sand, and is suspended in a magnetic bottle that could withstand the core temperature of a star. Admiral Krothnel slammed a massive fist on his platform, the sound echoing through the chamber. The Corinthian warrior was nearly 9 feet tall, with armored skin and eyes that glowed like embers. Your assurances mean nothing, human scientist. The Corinthians were confident too. Our greatest minds swore their calculations were perfect. Yet when their experiment failed, it created a gravitational anomaly that pulled our moon apart. 40 million Corinthians died because scientists believed they could control the uncontrollable. Admiral Torres stood, her military bearing commanding attention despite being dwarfed by many of the aliens present. Admiral Krothnel, I understand your people's pain, but humanity has proven our technology works. The Horizon's Edge has operated for 3 years without incident. More importantly, Captain Reed used that same technology to save Commander Zelfax's crew. If our containment systems were unstable, extending them to cover another vessel would have destroyed both ships. Instead, everyone survived. Commander Zelfax's sensory stalks waved in acknowledgement. This is true. My science team has analyzed the data from the rescue. The precision required to extend a singularity containment field around a failing antimatter reactor while maintaining stability is ... extraordinary. The calculations alone should have taken hours. Your crew did it in seconds. Reed seized the moment. Commander, that is exactly the point. Humanity approaches this technology differently than your species did thousands of years ago. We do not just understand the mathematics. We have integrated artificial intelligence monitoring systems that can make adjustments faster than any biological mind. We have quantum computing networks that simulate every possible failure mode millions of times per second. We have built our containment systems with the assumption that something will go wrong, and we have prepared for it. Speaker Harmonious 7 pulsed with a pattern that indicated consideration. Your words are logical, Captain Red. However, logic alone does not address the fundamental concern. Why did humanity pursue this technology? What purpose does it serve that could not be achieved through safer means? Reed had known this question would come. He took a deep breath and decided that only complete honesty would suffice. Speaker, humanity pursued this technology because we refused to accept limits imposed by fear. When we joined the galactic community 12 years ago, we discovered that we were centuries behind most species in conventional technology. Your faster-than-light drives are more efficient than ours. Your energy weapons are more powerful. Your shields are stronger. We could have spent the next 1,000 years trying to catch up using the same methods you use. Or we could innovate. He gestured to the view screen, which displayed an image of Earth. My species comes from a world that tried to kill us at every turn. We evolved on a planet with extreme weather, deadly predators, and natural disasters that could wipe out entire civilizations. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we learned to master fire, to harness electricity, to split the atom. Every major advancement in human history came from taking something dangerous and learning to control it. Project Prometheus is simply the latest chapter in that story. High Scholar Meredith's tentacles curled inward, a sign of deep thought. Your explanation reveals much about human psychology, Captain. But it also confirms our fears. You see danger as an opportunity rather than a warning. This mindset has served you well on your primitive world. But in a galaxy filled with ancient civilizations and delicate balances of power, such recklessness could trigger catastrophes that dwarf anything in your planet's history. Before Reed could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. A Volian communications officer appeared on the central display, its skin flushed with panic. Council members, we have an emergency. A Kryn Empire border outpost is under attack. Multiple hostile vessels have crossed into Corinthian space. They are requesting immediate assistance. Admiral Krothner leaped to his feet, his warrior instincts taking over. Who dares attack Corinthian territory? Show me. The view screen changed to display tactical data from the besieged outpost. 6 vessels of unknown configuration were bombarding the station with weapons that tore through shields as if they were paper. The attackers' hulls were black as void, covered in angular armor that seemed to absorb sensor beams. Commander Zelfax's sensory stalks went rigid. Those ships. They match historical records. Those are Devourers. The word sent a ripple of fear through the chamber. The Devourers were a nightmare from the galaxy's past, a machine intelligence that had nearly exterminated all organic life 8,000 years ago. They had been defeated and driven to the galactic rim, but they had never been completely destroyed. Every few centuries, they returned, probing defenses, testing for weakness. Speaker Harmonious 7's light patterns flickered with urgency. All available military vessels must respond immediately. The Devourers cannot be allowed to establish a foothold. If they capture that outpost, they will have access to Corinthian military databases. Admiral Torres turned to Reed. Captain, the Horizon's Edge is the closest human vessel. You are 3 light years from that outpost. Can you reach them in time? Reed did some quick calculations. With conventional hyperspace engines, no. We would need at least 40 minutes. But with the Singularity Drive, Dr. Zhang's eyes widened. Captain, the Singularity Drive has never been tested for combat jump scenarios. The power requirements for a rapid transit could destabilize the containment field. Reed met his engineer's gaze. Doctor, if we do not try, those Corinthians are dead, and the Devourers will have everything they need to launch a full-scale invasion. Sometimes you have to trust your own work. Admiral Krothner stepped forward, his massive frame radiating intensity. Human Captain, if you can reach my people in time, the Corinthian Empire will be in your debt. But if you fail, if your technology proves unstable, and you cannot help them, then you will have proven the Council's fears correct. Reed stood and saluted the Corinthian admiral. Then I suggest we do not fail. Torres, contact the Horizon's Edge. Tell them to prepare for emergency combat transit. We leave in 5 minutes. The journey from the Council Station to the Horizon's Edge took 3 minutes via emergency shuttle. Reed ran through the ship's corridors, his crew already at battle stations by the time he reached the bridge. Commander Morrison looked up from the tactical display, his face grim. Sir, we have updated tactical data from the outpost. 6 Devourer vessels, confirmed. Their weapons are tearing through the station's shields. Estimated time until shield collapse, 12 minutes. The nearest Council fleet is 45 minutes away. Reed dropped into his command chair. Then we are their only hope. Engineering, status on the Singularity Drive? Asterisk Chief Engineer Lawson's voice came over the intercom, tight with stress. Captain, the drive is ready, but I have to be honest with you. We have never pushed the system this hard. A combat jump requires channeling 10 times the normal power output through the containment field. If anything goes wrong, if we miscalculate by even a fraction of a percent, the Singularity could break containment. Reed closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his crew, of the Corinthian soldiers fighting for their lives, of the Council delegates watching to see if humanity's innovation would prove to be salvation or destruction. He opened his eyes, his decision made. Engineer Lawson, I trust your work. I trust this crew. We did not develop this technology to play it safe. Helm, plot a jump trajectory directly into the combat zone. Tactical, I want firing solutions ready the moment we emerge. All hands prepare for Singularity transit. Throughout the ship, crew members secured themselves at their stations. In engineering, Lawson and her team worked with desperate precision, calibrating systems and running final checks. The Singularity at the heart of the ship began to pulse with increasing intensity, its gravitational field warping space around the vessel. Singularity Drive charged and ready. Captain, the helm officer reported. Jump coordinates locked. Transit in 10 seconds. Asterisk. Reed gripped the arms of his chair. Make it count. All power to the drive. Execute jump. What happened next would be impossible to describe to someone who had not experienced it. The Horizon's Edge did not move through space in any conventional sense. Instead, it created a localized distortion in spacetime, folding the distance between itself and its destination. To observers, the ship simply vanished from one location and appeared in another, covering 3 light years in the span of a single heartbeat. The experience inside the ship was different. For 3 eternal seconds, Reed felt as if he were being stretched across the universe, every atom in his body existing in 2 places at once. Colors that had no names flickered at the edge of his vision. Sounds that could not exist whispered in his ears. Then, with a sensation like snapping back into reality, the Horizon's Edge emerged into normal space directly between the Devourer fleet and the damaged Corinthian outpost. Report. Reed called out, shaking off the disorientation of the jump. Morrison's hands flew across his console. All systems nominal. Shields at maximum. The Devourer vessels are breaking off their attack and turning toward us. I think we surprised them. Good, Reed said, his voice cold and focused. Let's keep them surprised. Tactical. Target their propulsion systems. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Communications. Transmit our tactical data to the outpost and any council vessels in range. Show them exactly what a human ship can do. The Horizon's Edge moved with a grace that belied its size, its enhanced engines allowing maneuvers that should have torn a conventional ship apart. The Devourer vessels opened fire with weapons that had destroyed countless civilizations. But the human ship's shields, powered by the Singularity Drive, absorbed the impacts with barely a flicker. Return fire, Reed ordered. Precision shots only. The Horizon's Edge's weapons were not the most powerful in the galaxy, but they were guided by targeting computers running on quantum processors that could calculate trajectories faster than the Devourers could adjust. Brilliant lances of coherent energy struck the enemy vessels exactly where human engineers had identified weak points in their ancient armor. One by one, the Devourer ships lost propulsion, tumbling helplessly through space. The entire engagement lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, all 6 Devourer vessels were disabled, and the Corinthian outpost was safe. Reed slumped in his chair, exhausted but satisfied. Status of the outpost? He asked quietly. Morrison checked his displays and smiled. They are damaged, but intact. Casualties are minimal. Sir, they are hailing us. And so is Admiral Krafner from the Council Station. Reed straightened his uniform and nodded. On screen, the view screen split to show both the grateful Corinthian outpost commander and Admiral Krafner, who stood in the council chamber surrounded by delegates, who had watched the entire engagement through transmitted sensor data. The outpost commander spoke first, his voice thick with emotion. Human captain, you have saved 300 Corinthian warriors today. Your courage and your technology have proven that humanity deserves to stand among the great civilizations of this galaxy. Admiral Krafner stepped forward, and to Reed's shock, the massive warrior placed his right fist over his heart in a Corinthian salute of highest respect. Captain Reed, the Corinthian Empire acknowledges the debt we owe. But more than that, we acknowledge that we were wrong. Your species has mastered what we could not. You have taken the power of stars and made it serve life rather than destroy it. This is worthy of honor. Commander Zelfax appeared beside the Admiral, the Vorlian's skin shifting to colors that indicated profound respect. Captain, the Vorlian Confederacy withdraws its objections to Project Prometheus. What we witnessed today demonstrates that humanity approaches dangerous technology with the caution it deserves, combined with the courage to use it when necessary. This is a rare and valuable combination. High Scholar Meredith's image joined the others, the Zephyrite's tentacles arranged in a pattern of acceptance. The Zephyrite communion concurs. Humanity has proven that innovation need not mean recklessness. We offer our scientific archives to assist in further refining your technology. Perhaps together, we can achieve what none of us could alone. Speaker Harmonious 7's crystalline form pulsed with warm light. The collective consciousness adds its voice to this consensus. Captain Red, humanity is hereby granted full authorization to continue development of singularity-based technologies. Furthermore, we extend an invitation for human scientists to join the Council's Advanced Research Initiative. Your perspective and your courage are precisely what the galaxy needs. As we face the challenges of a new era, Reed felt the weight of months of stress lift from his shoulders. He stood and bowed respectfully to the assembled aliens. On behalf of humanity, I accept your invitation and thank you for your trust. We will continue to push the boundaries of what is possible, but we will do so with the wisdom you have shared with us. Together, we will build a future where no species has to choose between safety and progress. The transmission ended, and Reed turned to his crew. Every face on the bridge wore an expression of pride and relief. They had done it. They had proven that humanity belonged among the stars, not as conquerors or as victims, but as innovators and protectors. Admiral Torres's voice, came over the communication channel from the council station. Marcus, you just changed humanity's position in the galaxy. The council is already talking about human representation on major committees. They want our help developing new technologies, new defenses. You have opened doors that would have stayed closed for centuries. Reed smiled, but his expression turned thoughtful. Admiral, this is just the beginning. Project Prometheus proved we could harness the power of singularities. But in our research, we discovered something else, something we have not told the council yet. There was a pause before Torres responded, her voice cautious. What did you discover, Captain? Reed walked to the view screen, looking out at the stars. Dr. Zhang found evidence that suggests our universe is not alone. The mathematics of singularity physics points to the existence of parallel dimensions, alternate realities existing alongside our own. If we can refine the containment technology further, we might be able to do more than just move through space. We might be able to move between universes themselves. The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. Humanity had just proven it could master one impossible technology. Now they were suggesting they could achieve something even more incredible. How long until you can test this theory? Torres asked, and Reed could hear the mixture of excitement and trepidation in her voice. Reed looked at Dr. Zhang, who had been listening to the conversation. The scientist thought for a moment before responding. If the council gives us access to their advanced computing networks, and if we can recruit top researchers from other species, maybe 5 years, maybe less if we are lucky. Reed turned back to the view screen, watching the stars that humanity had only recently reached. 5 years ago, we were alone on Earth, thinking we were the only intelligent life in the universe. Today, we are part of a galactic community. 5 years from now, who knows? Maybe we will be exploring entirely new realities, meeting versions of ourselves we never imagined could exist. Commander Morrison spoke up, his practical nature asserting itself. Sir, should we really be talking about this now? We just convinced the galaxy that we can be trusted with singularity technology. If we start talking about dimension hopping, they might reconsider. Reed shook his head. Commander, humanity did not get here by hiding what we are capable of. We got here by being honest about our ambitions and proving we have the skill to back them up. When the time comes to reveal our next project, we will do it the same way we revealed this one. With transparency, with respect, and with absolute confidence in our ability to achieve the impossible. He looked around at his crew. These humans who had risked everything on untested technology, who had trusted in science and courage to save lives and prove their worth. This is who we are. We are the species that looks at a black hole and asks how we can harness its power. We are the explorers who see boundaries and treat them as suggestions. We are humanity, and we will never stop reaching for the stars and beyond. The horizon's edge turned slowly, beginning its journey back to the council station. Behind it, the Corinthian outpost began repairs, its crew already spreading stories of the human ship that appeared from nowhere to save them. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the recordings of the battle, seeing for the first time what humanity truly represented. Not a threat, but a promise. The promise that progress was still possible, that innovation could still flourish, that the future was not written in the depths of space. The singularity at the heart of the ship pulsed with controlled power, a tiny piece of cosmic fury tamed by human ingenuity. It was a symbol of everything humanity had achieved and everything they would accomplish. The galaxy had tried to contain humanity's ambition, to make them conform to ancient fears and old limitations. But humanity had never been good at accepting limits. And now, with the galaxy's blessing, they were free to continue their eternal quest, to push beyond every boundary, to explore every mystery, and to prove that no challenge was too great for a species that refused to believe in the word impossible. The story of the horizon's edge would be told for generations. But it was not an ending. It was a beginning, the first chapter in humanity's true journey among the stars. And somewhere in the future, in laboratories and research stations across human space, scientists were already working on the next impossible dream. The next technology that would change everything, because that was what humanity did. They dreamed impossible dreams and then made them real. Asterisk.